So, we left off talking about the JTTF, and I wanted to find out what that actually meant, because those acronyms always came up, especially when talking about certain topics, and you really never delve into the meaning of it. So what I found out it was a joint terrorist task force. So that's that's what JTTF stands for. Dog, don't even think about it. JTTF stands for Joint Terrorist Task Force, a nationwide network of federal, state, and local law enforcement and intelligence agencies led by the FBI, dedicated to preventing, disrupting, and prosecuting terrorism. These collaborative teams pool resources, expertise, and authority to investigate threats, share intelligence, and respond to incidents, acting as crucial front line against both international and domestic terrorists. So there you have it. These these networks that they have set up, it's to combat terrorism, foreign and domestic. So when we have people like that one guy that went on a shooting spree, and they said that he was a targeted individual, that gave grounds for people that were deemed targeted individuals to be monitored as terrorists, because there's incidents where one man went on a shooting rampage and he was so fed up with people targeting him and spying on him, but these are all staged events. You know, there's really no terrorists at all. Majority of terrorists are created by the same agencies. When we go into the homeland that I suggested, you'll find that a lot of foreign dealings, and a lot of things that people did on foreign soil, and people that fought back against it, those people were labeled as terrorists. And because you don't really have any clue of what they're doing on other people's soil, you would think that these are just disgruntled people and just hate American policies. But there's certain incidents where there's drone strikes where they killed innocent children and women, and as opposed to them knowing that they can't beat a certain country, they fight them the best way they can by targeting their civilians or their networks and their setups that they have, or their embassies. And then if they do come onto American soil and wage some sort of war on them, you would think that those are terrorist acts. But that's just the way that a certain people uh, participate in war. This is the way that they fight. They can't fight them with the same military might that they have, but they stand for something or fall for anything. So these are people that have a dedication to their nation and to their whatever it is that they believe in. So to people who don't know the underhanded tactics that people do on their soil, so when they come over here, you would think that those people are terrorists and just wicked people, and they just want to. So again, there's really no terrorists. There's a lot of staged events and staged acts created to give the masses of people the idea that this is what it is. When you got targeted people like the person that shot up the Navy yard. He was a targeted individual, but this is just to give those people with that stigma, that name, so it solidifies them to have this network. This is where you have people with this funding that has no merit behind it. It doesn't makes any sense for you to have that type of funding. Billions of dollars and trillions of dollars is going to this, this Homeland Security and this Department of Defense, and the only thing that people need to be defended from is them. You understand? So that's what I understand about that. When you have terrorist networks and foreign and domestic, that only gives them grounds to surveil and target and monitor certain people, especially when people have that moniker on them. I'm a TI, I'm a targeted individual, I'm being gang-stalked. And, you are being gang-stalked because, they have these programs. If they have them, they're going to use them. And if they have funding for them, then they're just going to be distributing these funds to whoever, whenever, So it's once you understand that, a person is not a terrorist, and once you make this declaration, this is how you're going to get out of being looked at as a terrorist or being looked at as somebody that we need to keep an eye on, because, the whole thing is set up by professional liars. Again, the CIA, spies, and, these aren't truth tellers. They are professional liars. Your politicians are professional liars. Even the judges, lawyers, policemen, all these people are professional liars. Anybody that deal with secrecy, they can't tell the truth. They're professional liars. So one thing I wanted to address was, it was, somebody that say, a couple of people that, I'm a perp. What is a perp? You know what I mean? I've been in targeted groups, in gang stalking groups, and one person just came. First and foremost, you already know that everybody's in there is an agent, and one person went on my page and said he's 100% perp, and I'm like, son, what is a perp? You want to know what a perp is, so we're gonna find out what a perp is. Watermelon. So let's get that definition. Perp. A perp. A person who commits a crime. So he stepped into potholes, causing a perp down. He steps into a pothole, chasing a perp down the street. Okay. That's a slang Britannica definition of a perp. A person who commits a crime or does something wrong. So that's what a perp is, So when they, mistakenly call you a perp, especially when you do, righteous things, they, in all actuality, can be the perp. If a person is portraying themselves to be certain things to mislead people or to give other people a bad name, come on, dog. Leave that alone. Leave it alone, bruh. You don't want watermelon. Come on. Come on. When they cause people to 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 throw people off, or to manipulate people, or to psychologically manipulate people, then these people can be classified as a perp. And one thing that a lot of people have to do, like I stated in my other video, you have to go down people. You have to see the history of people to see who these people are, the spirit of these people. If you can't discern something from first hand, like you can't just see things and just discern it, then you might have to strengthen your discernment. And you strengthen your discernment by, if you are looking for something and then you find it, then that only triggers your, I was right about that person, but even then you can still be wrong, because when you have a person like me that is spiritually and morally sound and knows the history behind a lot of things, especially in this reality, and a person like me might, bear a certain symbol, like this symbol alone, you'll get the impression that I'm a Hebrew Israelite. You'll get the impression that because I got this symbol, that this guy he's wants to be Egyptologist, he want to be in Egypt, or you see all these symbols, but you don't understand that this person is doing that for a whole nother reason, that people that try to stake claim and ownership to certain things, they simply don't own anything at all, which is a really bold statement. It's something real bold and courageous for you to do, to allow you to know that all these institutions and all these establishments throughout the whole world that think they own certain things don't own anything at all, and that's real. I mean, that's not arrogant or aggressive. That's little old me show you that you can't own anything. Nothing in this world you can own. So that's where we take your power back, by taking your power back from people that pretend to be sovereign when they don't have the right to be sovereign. Especially when you have public servants. They are not sovereign. They're public servants. You're sovereign. They're not. You're a private person. They are not. They have to be transparent, as opposed to you. You could be private. You can be private. They can't. They can't. So these things. And when you know how you give certain information, and the information that you give is so it's so fascinating and one of a kind, that son, this stuff cannot be overlooked. How many things or events that I don't predicted, not just predicted, but you foreseen. Before Young Thug got into his criminal case, he was amongst the people that I showed you, like, yo, son, this guy, he said this. And then he actually did that. He said that he beat his cases. About 3 years before that, then he get into a court case, a big court case, where this could have been the end of him. He beat that case. So he said the same thing about Little Durk. You proclaim to be Muslim, but you still parade around with these, gang-like, a mannerism, and you still promote gangsterism. Once you reach this certain level of success, break away from that. Because if you don't, guess what? The devil's going to come and collect. All that dirt you was behind, all that stuff that you done said, that's coming back for you. And did it not come back for him? Did it not come back for him? It did. And you said that before it happened. You foresee certain things. So this is why you like, yo, son, how, who else is saying this type of stuff? And then for you to be one that, you want to undermine that? Some of y'all hiding something. Y'all hiding something about that. Then you go back and you go further back to 2022. And you tell people like, yo, Baba G and them was trying to move on me in Atlanta. My cousin tried to set me up with Baba G and them in Atlanta. And then 2 years after that, Baba G gets arrested. The life in prison. This ain't something that you wanted, but hey, bro, this is something that just happened, you know. And why did that happen to him? Maybe they were supposed to move on me, but couldn't, you know. Maybe they were supposed to, but I did know my cousin. My cousin, that day that I had posted that picture with those people offering me fame and fortune, and I said, nah, dog, I already got the light. Why would I need to go through y'all for the light and I already have it? My cousin put the angry face on there. You know, if I would have known that, I would have asked them like, yo, why you got upset because because I showed that, or did you get upset because of my response? You know, what was it that triggered that angry face? You know, but he did put an angry face on there, and he was amongst the people that was trying to set me up in Atlanta. You know, this. Like I told you, this ain't. You know, this ain't no. I don't know what y'all seeing, and I don't know what you think you're trying to pull on me, but you're not going to pull it on me. You know, if you're fake, I already know you're fake. You don't even if you're not genuine, I already know you're not genuine. In fact, I don't think that a lot of people are genuine. Some people might experience certain things because, like I said, they have an interest in certain people. And other people might just want to be a bandwagon jumper. Now, I mean, they might be people that want to jump on a bandwagon. Ooh, this is a hot topic. Or they might be prompted to speak about it because it has to be something to speak about because it's happening. Dog, stop messing with the curtains, bro, because you're going to pull that down. You know what I mean? Stop. Dog, man. But, you know, they bandwagon, the people that jump on bandwagons and you know, it's a hot topic, and oh, this person just, you know, went viral off of talking about this, and you know, they just went viral off of, son, that's them. I was prompted to talk about this because I was experiencing it, you know. So let me be vocal about certain things that I'm experiencing. Maybe we might be able to bring this thing to a close, to an end, which, you know, like I told you yesterday, it's over with for me. You can't gang stalk me. And if you are gang stalking me, I'm not paying no attention to it. You know, I'm not paying no attention to it. You're not getting no more energy out of me. And that's the bottom line. Now, like I said, other than that, I would go down a person's page. I would see the history of a people, especially with the stuff that they talk about. If everything that they talk about is gang-stalk, narcissist, that's, you know, that's commonology. You know what I mean? That's people talk about that in common. You know, so these are just topics that people have to discuss because they have to be a topic of discussion. They have to be an outlet for you to not go online. What a narcissistic boyfriend. Oh, they talking about narcissist right there. Yeah, that's him. Yeah, narcissist, toxic narcissist. Oh, dog. No. And as a person that's empathetical, you would think that, oh, okay, let me give you my input about narcissist. You know, but then you know that you're being baited, and you're being baited into certain things by you having experienced certain things, and now because you're speaking about the same thing that they spoke about, you seem common as them. So if these people are blowing smoke and you got the same topic that they got, then you're blowing smoke too. You know, so it's a way for you to be trapped off and categorized as one of them when you are actually nothing like them, you know. So this is why you're like, son, I'm not falling into their traps. Not that, but what I do have is, you know, exit for anybody that believe they're gang stalk. Because, you know, again, we do tend to see people that are not individuals saying that they're being targeted as individuals. And like I said, those things are, oxymoronic. It's seemingly contradictory. You can't be in a group and be singled out and targeted. They have to target that whole group, not just you, because you're a part of that group, right? You're a part of that group. What are you? You're a Hebrew Israelite. Oh, on the corner right there. Every week, every day, they got pictures of 10s and 20s, 30s of them on the corner, cursing people out and telling people that their religion is wrong. They're the ones that's singling people out. Why don't you, if you're singled out, then go amongst them. Go ask them for redress. Go ask them for help. No. Oh, what are you, Christian? Oh, go to that mega church. They good. Every week they make millions of dollars. Go seek refuge with them. You can't do that. So that's what I mean. But for me, you're one who says that you're the son of the true and living God. How many people believe that? Not many people will believe that. Even though it's the Heavenly Father, even though God is the Father, even though they believe God is the Father, but you can't be no son of no God. It's contradictory, right? God is the Father. That means that all people on this planet, if they believe that God is the Father, so you're not one of them. Because they're not one of you. They think that you're bugging when they might be the ones that's bugging. So that's that with that. So, and again, a lot of us, because we know certain things, are outcasted or want to be kept away from certain things. You can't have access to a people, because then, if you leave him thus alone, if we leave him thus alone, then people will believe on him, or her, So a lot of us have to be bombarded with certain ideologies that, contradict what you already know. And because you don't submit to those ideologies, you become, one that is ruled not credible, or one that they try to tear down. And that's the thing about me. If they was with me, you would think that, these are my people, or they just might be, testing you in some sort of sense. But, they have done some of the most heinous things to me, for me to know that these people aren't with me. They're actually against me in every sense of the word. They had a woman, a female, poison me. He told me that she was with them, poison me, and rob me, and with a whole bunch of with guys. I don't know what they did, but you woke up the next day, you had different drawers on, and not only that, but they went outside and put some, either, excuse my usage, they either use dog doodle or some other kind, but they put those in the drawers. So you can't be none of my people and do that. Those people, they actually suffered for that. For those events. And I had one person trying to give me poison, and these aren't my people. They had people playing around on my Facebook, acting like me and interacting with people in my friend list. And one of the people rolled up on me and was like, yo, you don't remember talking to you? Don't remember asking me about this? I knew it wasn't you, because you asked me about something that I knew you ain't know about, But, spirit-wise, it only indicated that it was the girl that she was playing, because she knew the guy too, But again, she's amongst the program, because it's deep rooted in her family. Her mother is in the program. Her mother set people up and get in relationships with old men and rob them and do stuff like that. So it's deep rooted in the family, So and you got to understand that when you go to this city, you see, oh, this is a Masonic city. They got Masonic signs in there. If you look at Garfield, New Jersey, let me see if I can pull it up for you. Because Bergen County is one of the richest counties in the nation, and Garfield is in Bergen County. Um, and that would be on, I forget the name of that street. Lanza, and that was right around the corner from there. What's the name of that street? I'll forget it, but it's you know what I mean. I want to see the image because it's right there on the street sign. That as soon as you go into Garfield, it has a Rotary Club, and it actually has a sign right there on the street. And I'm like, oh, but you wasn't putting the pieces together back then. But those people, and they was well known by the police in that city and stuff like that. And then when you did have a run in with the police was, in there, um, sitting down talking. And then when you came in, their face looked like they dropped, like, and then you told them, you ran down the things that happened, and they was reluctant. And not only that, they was like, yo, you know what I mean, such and such don't love you. They just want their phone back. Like, your family don't love you. Like, they must have known, not even must have, they knew that, certain things transpired with them. But, that's neither here nor there. A lot of things, like I said, it stopped um, getting to you once you started to know that, hold on, bro, these people aren't with me. They are really, really, really against me, you know. And not only that, you stand alone, stand alone. And being that you stand alone, and as you know that you stand alone, and that you're more powerful than all these people because you have the ability to stand alone and stand in truth. These people have to mount up against you and do illicit things to you, do criminal acts against you. Real solid people that's built on a solid foundation have to mob together and do real illicit things to you, real wicked things to you. You know what I mean? Things that people that's built on a constitution, on a declaration of independence, on a bill of rights, have to do malicious and criminal acts against you. You know how powerful you are when they have to do that? When, churches have to mob together against you, when, your own people have to turn a blind eye to you. You know what I mean? When your own people, when you see mountains of people mounting up saying that they're this, but you know what they actually are, when you know that they're not that. You know the truth about that, how powerful you are when you're able to do that, you know. You don't know, but I did tell you. I told you you want to see how fascinating a person is. Go down their page. Go down their page. Go check out that. Yo, most spiritual YouTubers are agents. And I stated that in 2022. What is this, 2025? I stated that in 2022. Most spiritual YouTubers, meaning that, they're either spiritual or they're claiming to be spiritual or they're targeted or claiming to be targeted, they're all agents. It's not a secret. I stated that. That means that, son, I'm not one of them. I'm able to identify them. Able to identify them. I gave you some of the most deepest stuff that you could possibly hear from a random person, you know? Yo, I told my father, like, yo, son, you can't touch me. And he didn't touch me, but he showed up later on that night and he had a being with him. I mean, a shadow being. And then it comes out later, a couple of years later, yo, it's shadow beings in the mall. Yo, all these lights, the police, all you seen it, we seen aliens in there. You know? So there's something with interest. Then you do have a movie called The Watchers, where those same beings that I was telling you about is in there. And, you know, yeah, and The Watchers. And not only that, I told you, yo, they was checking my eye. I was still woke, waiting for my father to come in there and beat me. But they came in the room checking my eye. You know what I mean? And then when you do go to the movie Watchers, it's they checking the eye. You know? What is it with the eye? You know? But you know, yeah, the Watchers. Coming in 2024. You know, it came out in 2024. You know, and again, the spiritual YouTuber, you know, shadow banning and gang stalking. You know what I mean? 2022. You know what I mean? And spoke about my cousin and Nature Boy and Baba G in 2022. In 2024 is when they sent him to prison for life. You know, so you're not saying that to say, you know, you're one that foresees, but you're one that foresees. And you're one that experiences, and you're one that's transparent because you want to be transparent. You know what I mean? I'm not secretive, and I don't know, but I do know, you know, more than actually, you know, tell. And it's the reason why you hear a lot of, because you know that you're restricting yourself from saying certain things, keeping a lot of stuff to yourself because everything ain't for everybody. You know, I told the woman last on my last video, you know, it's all about information. Information is so important to people. It's a life or death thing to certain people. You know, information. You know, so for some people, information is that vital. A lot of things they don't, you know, people can't believe or that people can't know. You know, so some things are restricted, even though I'm a truth teller. You know, you would have to ask me personally, and that's one thing that a lot of people should have did. They should have took the time out to ask me certain things, to vet me themselves. No, what do you think about this? You know, well, I liked your video, but why you was moving like that? They would have found out that I was sleeping on a floor in a crack house. You know what I mean? With mice. You know what I mean? With mice. And living there humbly, you know, in a crack house, in a drug infested neighborhood on the floor. You know what I mean? Creating peace in that environment. You know? And they would have found that out. Like, oh, wow. That's why you had to go there like that. That's why you had the mask on like that. Or you had to be amongst them as them. Oh, I see. You know? As opposed to you getting online. You're a fake. Look at the way he moved. And then go share somebody who I know is a fake. A couple of people that I know is a fake. You know? That I can sense. Like, something's up with that. Man just came out of nowhere and nah, something is fake. You know, I already know. You know, so that's just you know me. You know, you come and you ask people certain things. Like, hold on, dog. Why do you talk about this, but then you talk about that? You know, why do you have all this stuff on your wall, but you're not that? You know, Why do you wear those symbols, but you're not that? You know, why do you, you don't sound like them, but you're saying, you know, that you're one of them? Because what I can experience is that's what I relate to what I'm experiencing. You know, targeting, being targeted. Hold on, that's why these people was at my job acting weird. I'm being gang stalked. These people got phones out. Yeah, that's what I'm going through. You know, so you pick up on certain things because of your discernment, and that's why you do it. You know, you don't do it because you're a bandwagon jumper. Some people, like I said, they jump on bandwagons, and because they see other people doing it, or they feel as though, they want to be watched or want to be one of the people that's seen amongst a group of people that feel as though, yeah, they gotta watch me, and then you have people that are straight up agents, and they're role players, and they have to play a role. You know, I don't have to do that. You know, guys, I'm, I can, like I said, I'm, I'm very, very, very not powerful in the cocky sense, but powerful in a strong mind and strong willed and able to take the truth any kind of way that it comes. If it's a truth that affect me in any kind of way, I'm able to deal with it. Able to deal with it. And death and life and all that stuff is beneath me. Because you're one with life. And life is one with me. So we don't really take anything more serious than life. Nothing is bigger than life. Not a agency, not a gang, not a group, not a religion, not a anything. Nothing is bigger than life. And as long as we understand that, then everything is light to you. I mean light, not like light, but light is it's featherweight. There's no gravity in it. There's no seriousness in it. You know, and but we wanted to share our declaration of sovereignty, so that when people feel as though they are done with gang stalking, you can declare your sovereignty. You can declare yourself free from any kind of gang stalking, and anything else outside of that is a violation of sovereign law, spiritual law, moral law, and criminal law. So this is how you take back your power from gang stalking. So there, you that's why I stated that gang stalking is over with for me, because it's morally wrong and it's spiritually wrong, and it's all built and based on lies. And we stand for the truth and justice. You know what I mean? We stand for that. So with that being said, we're going to hereby declare to be a sovereign individual on whom no one can impose rights and obligations without my consent or any consent, not even on the basis of fine sounding legal, moral, or other jurisdictions that's justified underneath any kind of penalties. I submit myself to the obligations to recognize the sovereignty of other individuals to the same extent. I hereby declare that I do not wish to be considered a member of any association, community, or society of any kind, which I have not expressly joined. This declaration is addressed to all individuals and groups of any kind, but especially to criminal organizations and states that pretend to be able to impose obligations on me without my consent. They do not specifically ask for my consent, although I could even have voted in favor out of my own interest or in the spirit of my free and voluntary contribution to the common good. This circumstance is not cured by so-called democracy. On the contrary, the all-dominant majority principle without qualifications, requirements for those entitled to vote, always base motives such as envy, resentment, and other resentments to cultivate it, which quite legally lead to the theft of property and privacy from minorities or other groups. Furthermore, the mere possibility of participating in this dubious power through a multitude of legislative, judicial, or executive functions and offices reduce the essential resistance to such monstrosities to almost zero. This declaration is directed in particular at those states and agencies that wish to impose their so-called sovereignty on me under terms such as constitution, law, ordinance, or marching orders, official notification, etc. As a sovereign individual, I am aware that subjugation to a state to which I have not given my consent will at best create fewer costs or more benefits than if I were to prioritize my own sovereignty always and under all circumstances in the sense of ideology of sovereignty. Although I explicitly do not do this, I feel compelled to leave the path of tolerated oppression, coercion, and psychological manipulation because the damage is getting out of hand in a variety of ways, such as violation of my human dignity through increasing coercion, markedly growing restrictions on the power of disposal over my body and many other of my property and privacy, insinuations regarding my inability to care for myself and my health, open mistrust that I can care for myself and my property with honest and upright intentions, growing administrative and legal efforts to comply with the legal norms that have become unmanageable, and the requirement of transparentable citizenship, permanent and growing danger of criminalization through legal norms that have become inhumanely unmanageable, opportunities to be brought before a court and politically condemned without anyone else suffering any damage, open theft of my property under threats of violence, instrumentalization of business and science, and much more, while the potential benefits are consistently diminishing in a variety of ways, such as the protection of my health through the administration of supposedly side effect free vaccination substances, like the COVID vaccination, and which then nevertheless cause considerable damage and can even lead to death. The protection of me and my privacy and my property through constantly changing legislation and the resulting legal uncertainty, the increasing inconsistencies of the escalating numbers of legal norms with the result of the accumulation of legal disputes and the procrastination and overburdening of the actual administration of justice. Open violations of principles of separation of power through monopolization and instrumentalization of jurisdiction, violation of fundamental principles of independence through jurisdiction in one own cause and legislation by the executive administration, increasing stalking, wiretapping, surveillance, open and growing mistrust to me as a citizen and person, including the so-called automatic exchange of information with other states and agencies regarding bank data, economic incentives, and admission of so-called refugees with the consequences of destabilization of peace and order. Whether refugees would be, people that would be considered targets, and much more. There is also no prospect of this imbalance improving. The irresponsible, wasteful use of taxes and levies paid to citizens for stalking and the favoring of undesirables under the seemingly nice term social cause and the burdening of desirables through progressive taxations, wealth taxes, and more cumulatives in the discouragement of the good and the strong, and in high national debt. There is no sign of an end to the poverty-inducing growth of state. Despite my contribution, the debt has always been increasing. Extents of my consent that this is also a cause of unfaithful management for which I cannot and do not want to be responsible as a guarantor. The benevolent tyranny that I have long assumed has given way to an evil tyranny that creates constraints and dependencies on nationals that have the same characteristics of slavery as those that have long been considered forbidden and abolished. I hereby also declare myself to be a moral, spiritual, rational, and linguistically gifted person who cannot be a member of such an unreasonable, lying, stealing, and immorally acting association called states or agencies, which for its part is subjecting itself more and more to opaque criminal practices and influences, entangling itself in dubious memberships of higher level global institutions with obscurely appointed representatives, which are breaking their own long cherished traditions of neutrality and protection of individuals, such as violation of privacy, harassment, community mobbing, while maintaining secrecy. For example, to be abolished in a short space of time. In my orientation towards my conscience and the good, I pose no threat to others and renounce the right of any agencies which, as is to be expected from a monopoly, meaning that it's a multitudes of groups of people, a myriad of groups, produce ever worse laws with even greater burdens and cause consequences. This so-called law is created by others under specific premises and procedures and is used ever more blatantly to oppress the members of these states. Ultimately, this written letter is non-fiction that can be changed again through legislation and can and does. I am, on the other hand, consciously entered into the supra-positive law or natural law, in which the norms of coexistence have an external and eternal character, such as the prohibition of encroaching on the privacy and property of others, are valid without having to be written. This natural law or priori law is the basis of any nonviolent and peaceful coexistence of people, has been valid at least since the thought of ancient philosophers such as Socrates, Aristotle, or others, and it was recorded and is closely related to human rights. Hereby, as a sovereign individual and as a spiritually, moral human being with my innate, free, and self-determined nature, I have ruled as my own judge on the appropriateness and usefulness of any membership in organizations such as states and have pronounced my judgment. I do not exclude the possibility that there are or will be communities such as those targeted, which are or will be built on the basic principles of a natural order in which membership could be an honor for me. I expressly reject the mafia principle, which states that if I don't want to live, if I don't have to leave a country, if I don't like it. Rather, it is the oppressors or sovereign individual or spiritually moral people who are to be regarded as lepers and who must immediately refrain from their harmful actions with their increasingly visible consequences. I do not accept any violence or any threat of violence against me and expressly proclaim my sovereign will to live in peace, to be left alone, and to leave others alone. I will not harm any other sovereign individuals, especially of such a nature that I do not wish to be harmed myself. People or organizations that violate the principles of reciprocity For example, by acting not only as thieves of privacy, but also as thieves of time, can be held responsible by me for the resulting damage. I reserve the right to demand compensation for the damage caused to me at any date. So that is the declaration of, sovereignty and freedom from gang stalking. Once you state that openly and you declare that, that declaration is now what you have that's in front of you and in front of them. It's blocking them from you. So I'm gonna put that, this is written in my notes. So this is why I was reading it off my page, off of my screen, because I have it in my notes. And I'm going to copy it and paste it in the description of this video. And if anybody wants to use that as a means of, freeing themselves from gang stalking, then that's what you would be doing. You wouldn't be prolonging the tactics used by, said individuals or said groups. And that's just what it is. That's just what it is. Their, criminal acts should not affect or have any burden and effect on, a peaceful, law abiding or a righteous being that has no kind of ill intent towards the next person. This declaration, it absolves you from being looked at as that, because this is an open declaration. It's an open declaration, and it can be used by any and every individual. So if you are targeted, believe you're targeted, and want the targeted to end, this is what you would be using as a means of, making your understanding understood, to a people, you know. And that's another thing I wanted to say was that, we don't want to keep hurting ourselves. You know, that is, a mental disorder, to keep hurting yourself, like when I was young, I used to bite the inside of my jaw. I used to just bite it. Right now it's kind of sore, but I would bite it, and I knew that it hurted. Like I would bite it for weeks, and it would get so tender, and I would still bite it, knowing that it hurt. Like I would just bite it. In school, I would bite it. People didn't know the pain that I was in, because this was something that I kept to myself. Maybe pain is something that has something to do with us being alive. But I would bite it and bite it and bite it, knowing that I'm in excruciating pain. I'd be crying. You gotta understand, I was young. And, you know, after a while, you would have to stop biting, let it heal. And as you let it heal, it stopped hurting. And then you would get into something that make you bite your jaw. Maybe it was something I did in my sleep. I don't know. But I would bite it, bite the inside of it, and it would get real tender and sore. And, the longer you bit it, the more it hurted. And once you stop biting it, it healed. So that's the same process with these gang stalking. And the more that you're going to keep feeding it, and feeding it, is going to be persistent. It's going to be prevalent. And if you don't allow it to heal, then it's never going to heal. So that's one of the things that, you wanted to, share. And that's it. That's how you get to that. That's how you get to that. You're freeing yourself from gang stalking. Now you have no excuse, and you don't have no reason to be, scared, or when is this gonna stop? It stops when you want it to stop. It stops when you say it stops. That's how you take your power back. When you take your sovereignty back, as you being a sovereign being, you have a right to privacy. Some things are, you have unviolable rights. You have unviolatable rights, and one of them is the pursuit of happiness. And being gang stalked is interfering with your pursuit of happiness, you know. And that's for others, you know. For me, you know, happiness is within. So, you know, I hope that helps, you know, somebody or a few people. If not, then I don't know what to tell you. But other than that, peace.